The courtroom of Zarethia was unlike anything known to Earth. It floated above the surface of a living planet, carved from crystal glowing with veins of violet light. Rows upon rows of alien species stood tall in silence, each race older than the last, each eye fixed forward. Then a sound echoed not from a voice, but from thought itself. The queen was coming. A heavy door opened, and she entered. Queen Seralia, tall and glowing with golden skin. Her eyes were twin stars. Her hair floated like smoke. She wore a robe laced with the bloodlines of 1,000 monarchs, and behind her floated the symbol of her power, a single silver crest that marked her as the last fertile ruler of her kind. Everyone bowed, except one. He stood in the center of the room, chains around his wrists, shackles at his feet, a collar buzzing at his neck. He was human Captain Ryan Cole. He did not lower his head. He stared back at the queen with calm eyes, not out of pride, but because he had nothing left to lose. A voice echoed across the chamber. It belonged to the High Speaker, one of the Queen's oldest advisors. The charge: violation of genetic purity, contamination of royal blood, pregnancy without consent of the circle. The crowd erupted. Some screamed, others hissed. One being even began to weep. The Queen raised her hand. Silence returned. She stepped closer, her eyes on Ryan. Her voice calm but sharp: explain your actions. Earthman Ryan swallowed hard, but not from fear. He had already explained a dozen times in a dozen ways, but no one listened. Not really. He took a breath, then spoke. It was supposed to be a peace mission. One representative from Earth, to begin talks of trade, alliance, understanding. The Zarethians had demanded it happen on their world. He agreed. He came alone. They told him he would meet with a royal advisor. He prepared for political questions, cultural lessons, scientific exchange. What he got was a room filled with incense lit with soft blue fire, and at the center a bed carved from stardust, and on that bed, the queen herself. He didn't know what was expected. He tried to speak. She placed a hand on his chest and said only one thing: do not fear. Just Betty rest. He barely remembered. Touch, heat, connection deeper than anything human words could describe. No one told him this was a ritual, a test, a sacred act meant only for those selected by fate. He was not trained for this. He was not prepared. But still, something happened between them. Something powerful, something real. The queen listened in silence, her expression unreadable. Ryan's voice softened. I didn't mean to break your law. I didn't even know I could, but I know this. It wasn't just physical. You felt it too. I saw it in your eyes. The chamber shifted. Some aliens leaned forward. Others looked away. The queen walked around him slowly, each step measured, each glance burning. Then she spoke. You think you were chosen by chance. You believe this was a mistake. Ryan didn't answer. He didn't know how she faced the council. Let them hear the truth. I have tried for centuries, with suitors from across galaxies, kings, warriors, genetic marvels. None awakened the core within me. None sparked life in my womb until him. Gasps filled the chamber. The queen raised her voice. On the first night, he succeeded where all others failed, not just in body, but in spirit. For the first time I felt warmth. I felt joy. I felt something I never believed I could have. Hope. The speaker stepped forward. But your highness, he is a human. Their kind is unstable, short-lived, emotionally wild. The queen turned to him. And still he made me feel more than any of you ever have. The speaker tried again. Your majesty, the child he planted may change the balance of power. Other empires will not accept it. The prophecy must be protected. Ryan looked confused. What prophecy? The queen looked at him, then to the council. Long ago, it was written that when the stars begin to fade, a light from a dying world would bring rebirth, born of union, forged in love, raised in fire. That child is now within me, and the father is him. The council exploded in noise, debate, anger, fear, hope. Ryan stood still, his mind racing. Father, prophecy, fire. He never signed up for this, but deep inside he knew it was true. He felt something that night too. Something that haunted his dreams, something that called to him. Even now the queen stepped closer, her eyes softer now, her voice quieter. You are not just a mistake, you are the future. Ryan stared at her, his lips barely moving. Then why am I in chains? Queen did not answer. Instead she walked back to her throne. The speaker called for silence again. Then he turned to her. "What do you command?" The queen did not speak at first. Her eyes never left Ryan. Then, barely audible, she whispered, "I felt it too." The courtroom fell silent, not from fear, but from something else. Something even more powerful: respect, understanding, and for the first time in Zerethian history, a human had changed everything. The council knew it. The queen knew it, and Ryan, he was just beginning to understand what he had become, the father of a new age, and nothing would ever be the same again. Before the trial, before the chains, before the eyes of the galaxy turned toward Earth, there was a question that no one dared to ask out loud. Why him? Why a human? Why not someone stronger, smarter, more powerful? Zerethia had ruled for thousands of years. Its queen was worshipped like a goddess. Her words shaped laws. Her touch healed wounds. Her body was the final hope of a fading race. And yet, it was a human who changed everything. The queen sat alone in her chamber, long before Ryan ever arrived. Stars drifted outside her window, silent, cold, distant. She placed a hand on her abdomen. Nothing, still empty. Another failed ritual. Another genetic disappointment. Her court whispered, her scientists gave reports, each one colder than the last time. Is running out, Your Highness. But she already knew. She could feel it in her bones. Her power dimming, her nights growing longer. Her mind heavier. The council offered more candidates, engineered beings, perfect, DNA flawless bodies, sterile souls. She refused them all. There was something inside her, a voice, an instinct, a longing she could not explain. She stood at the edge of her balcony, closed her eyes and whispered to the stars, "If there is something left for me, send it. Whatever it is, I will accept it." Weeks passed. Then the Earth delegation responded. They would send one representative, no army, no scientist, no ambassador, just one man. A soldier with no family, no politics, no complications. Captain Ryan Cole. The council laughed at the offer, a human, primitive, loud, wild, but the queen, she felt something stir, a flicker in the dark. She approved the mission herself, ordered that Ryan be brought directly to her, privately, without briefing, without expectations. Let it happen, as fate intends. When he arrived, he was quiet, not nervous, not arrogant. He looked around the crystal room, and instead of asking questions, he simply said, "This place is beautiful." No compliments, no flirtation, just honesty. She studied him, his walk, his voice, his heartbeat. It was steady, but beneath that surface a storm he carried, lost memories of battle, a quiet kind of pain that made him real. She approached him slowly, said nothing, only reached out and placed her hand on his chest. What she felt was fire, not just warmth, but something ancient, something raw. She stepped back, shaken, not by fear but by hope. No one had ever awakened her core like that. Not once, not even close. She motioned toward the stardust bed, not as a command but as an invitation. He hesitated, confused, but curious. He didn't see a queen, he saw a woman, and that was everything. That night was not passion, it was prophecy. His touch was unsure at first, but gentle. His hands moved not with control, but with care. The queen closed her eyes, and for the first time in her long life, she felt something rise inside her, light, color, life. The moment it happened, she knew it had worked. The ancient bond, the royal spark, the miracle her people had waited centuries for. It was complete, and the father was a man from Earth. The next morning, she stood alone in the ritual chamber, her body already shifting, cells dividing, power awakening. Her advisors found her there, glowing. They fell to their knees, some in awe, some in fear. The high speaker arrived moments later. He saw the change. He knew what it meant, and his first words were not of joy. They were of warning. "This child will not be accepted." The queen turned to him, and for the first time in years, she smiled. "Then let the stars watch. Let the galaxies choose sides." The speaker argued. "The council will never agree. Other empires will feel threatened. War will come." The queen spoke only one word: good. She did not care for politics. She did not care for fear. All she cared about was the life now growing inside her and the man who gave it. She summoned Ryan alone, in secret, He entered quietly, still wearing the simple uniform Earth had given him. Still unaware of what he had done, she told him, not with grand speeches, not with ceremony, just a whisper, "I carry your child." He froze, not in panic, but in disbelief. He looked at her, at the golden light beneath her skin, at the soft glow of her eyes, and he asked only one thing. "Are you okay?" The queen laughed softly, not out of mockery, but surprise. In all her life, no one had asked her that. Not once. She nodded, then said, "We are both okay." He sat beside her, quiet again, lost in thought. She expected him to question everything, to ask about rules, about laws, about his future, but instead, he said this, "Then I will stay if you want me to." And in that moment, she knew he was more than a donor, more than a mistake, more than a man. He was her choice. Days later, the council found out. They stormed her chambers, demanded answers, threatened exile. She refused to surrender him, refused to terminate the pregnancy. The council moved quickly. Ryan was arrested, dragged in chains, placed before 1,000 eyes. They expected the queen to stand with them. Instead, she stood before them and declared the truth. "He is not my mistake. He is my mate, chosen by fate and by me." The courtroom froze. Gasps, shouts, shock, but no one moved. No one dared. The speaker turned to her, then to Ryan. He asked if Ryan had manipulated her, used Earth technology, hidden some trick. Ryan answered calmly, "I didn't do anything except be honest and care about her." And that was what made him dangerous, because in a galaxy full of power, of manipulation, of politics, he was pure. The queen stepped down from her throne, approached him again, and whispered so that only he could hear, "I felt it too." The chamber went silent. Her hand reached for his, and in that moment, no one saw a prisoner and a queen. They saw something else. They saw destiny. News spread across the stars, faster than light, faster than truth. The queen of Zarethia, the last fertile monarch of a dying race, was pregnant, not with a prince from the Orion halls, not with a warrior from the Gamma Forge, not even with a genetically sculpted heir from the labs of Nexium Prime, but with a human, an unmodified, unenhanced, emotionally unstable creature from the edge of the Milky Way. Panic followed the whispers. Some called it betrayal, others called it prophecy, and a few called it war. On the planet Karuan, the leaders of the Tri-Mind Republic demanded the queen be removed. They called her unfit, tainted, compromised. On the moons of Talros, religious orders declared the unborn child an abomination. They prepared fleets and sermons in equal measure, and on Earth governments scrambled. No one had expected this. No one had prepared for the possibility that one human could set the galaxy on fire with a single act of connection. Back on Zarethia, Captain Ryan Cole sat alone in a chamber of crystal and silence. No windows, no bed, only a single chair made of light. He had not been tortured. He had not been questioned. He had simply been left alone. He did not know what the galaxy was saying. He only knew what he had felt and what he still felt: a connection, a warmth, a bond, not just with the queen, but with the life now growing inside her. He had always thought he was broken. The wars, the missions, the losses, they had left scars he did not show, but when he touched her hand, he felt something that made those scars quiet. Hope. The door opened. 2 Zarethian guards entered, tall skin like polished stone, eyes like molten blue. They said nothing, just nodded for him to follow. He stood without protest. He was not afraid. He was taken through halls of glowing crystal, past murals that told the stories of empires long gone, past statues of queens who had ruled for centuries, and finally, he entered a Gardena place where plants floated, where gravity bent like water, where light danced without a sun. And in the center, she waited. Queen Ceraliash was barefoot, her robe open at the front, revealing the faint golden glow in her abdomen. She turned when she saw him, and her face, for the first time, showed something more than power. It showed worry. He approached, careful, slow. "You called for Mesh?" Nodded. "I needed to see you before they make their next move." "Who are they?" "The council, the neighboring systems, everyone." He looked around, then back at her. "What did we start?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she placed her hand over her belly. "Life, something this galaxy had not seen in over 100 years. A royal heir, not engineered, not manufactured, born of instinct, of choice, of feeling. She looked at him again. They fear what this child represents: change, balance, and a reminder that control does not create life. Connection does. He reached out, touched her hand. Do you regret it? Their eyes softened. No. But I fear for what it may cost. They stood in silence, not needing more words. But outside the garden, chaos grew. In the war chambers of the Andrelon Empire, generals plotted an invasion. They believed the queen had fallen to madness, that Zarethia was weak, vulnerable on the trade planet of Zer merchants, canceled centuries-old agreements, fearful of what a human royal bloodline might mean. And deep in the shadows, an assassin was given a mission: eliminate the child before it could be born. Back in the palace, the queen and Ryan shared a quiet meal. He laughed at the taste of a fruit that felt like foam. She smiled when he told her Earth didn't have floating waterfalls. It felt normal, almost human, until the lights dimmed, until the air shifted, and until a scream echoed through the crystal walls. The guards reacted first, rushing to the queen, forming a shield. But Ryan, he ran toward the danger, without armor, without weapons. Only with instinct. He found the source, a chamber near the east wing, a place where the queen's energy was stored. Sacred, protected now. Broken. A figure in black stood at the center, holding a weapon shaped like a shadow. The moment Ryan stepped in, the figure moved fast, almost faster than light. But Ryan was trained for speed. He dodged, grabbed a piece of fallen crystal, blocked the next strike. They fought in silence, no words, only movement. Ryan was smaller, weaker, but he had something more. He had purpose. With a final move, he slammed the crystal into the attacker's chest. The figure fell, cloak burning, mask cracking, and beneath it was not a soldier, not a mercenary, but a child, barely older than a teenager, modified, programmed, controlled. Ryan stared in horror. Then the child whispered, "The stars must not mix. The order must stay pure." And then silence. The queen arrived seconds later. She looked at the body, then at Ryan, and something in her broke. They are willing to kill, even use their own young, to stop what we've started. Ryan nodded, his shirt stained with light and blood. Then let them come. She reached for his hand, clutched it tightly. "We must leave tonight." "Where will we go to?" "The forgotten places, the ancient moons, anywhere the child can grow safely." Ryan looked at her, then at the stars above. "Whatever it takes, I'll protect both of you." Queen leaned in, whispered against his cheek, "You are no longer just human." And so, as panic spread across systems, as leaders plotted, as enemies gathered, a queen and a human fled into the stars, not in fear, but with a promise to protect their child, to protect their love, and to face whatever came next together. The night sky above Zarethia burned with the light of leaving ships. One of them held a queen, and a man who had broken the laws of blood and power. Ryan Cole sat in silence beside her, strapped inside a small stealth vessel built long ago for royal escape. It hadn't been used in centuries, not since the last time a ruler feared her own council. The ship cut through hyperspace, no guards, no escorts, only the hum of ancient engines and the sound of her breathing beside him. Queen Seralia had not spoken since they left, not even once. Ryan wanted to ask if she was all right, but the air felt too heavy, so he waited. After a long moment, she reached for his hand, pressed it against her stomach. A soft pulse, a rhythm, not hers, not his, but something new there. Child alive, growing strong. Her voice came quietly. "They will never stop. Not until this heartbeat ends." Ryan looked at her, then at the glowing streaks of space outside the window. "Then we won't stop either." She leaned her head against his shoulder, and for the first time the Queen of Zarethia allowed herself to cry. Tears fell without shame, without words, and he let them, not because he knew what to say, but because he understood what silence meant. They landed on a moon long forgotten by most maps, covered in frost, home to nothing but the wind and old stone temples. The Zarethians once called it Salura, the place of first voices, a sacred site, where only rulers walked during visions and trial. Now it was their hiding place. Ryan helped her walk through the snow. She moved slower, now heavier, her power centered deep within her body. They found shelter inside an old stone sanctuary. its walls still humming with ancient energy. The queen collapsed into the cushions placed for meditation. Ryan knelt beside her. "You need to rest." Shook her head. "I need to stay awake, in case they track us here." He touched her hand. "Then I'll stay awake for both of us." That night, Ryan kept watch while the wind howled like wolves and the stars blinked like tired eyes. He thought of Earth, of his old unit, of the time he was shot and left behind. He thought he had survived that moment for nothing. Now he understood why. The next morning, the queen woke in pain. She clutched her side, eyes wide, skin glowing too bright. Ryan rushed to her, panicked, unsure what to do. She whispered, "The child is moving too early." He pressed both hands over her belly and whispered back, "Breathe with mesh." Did. Slow, deep. The pain began to fade. She looked at him, surprised. "You calmed it." Ryan shrugged. "I don't know how. I just felt it shifting, and I told it we're not ready yet." She laughed, a sound that echoed through the cold stone. "You talked to it already?" He smiled. "Of course. That's my kid in there." They shared that moment, soft, simple, real. But outside their sanctuary, the war had begun. The Council of Zarethia declared the queen compromised, the child illegitimate, the bloodline broken. New factions rose, some loyal to the queen, others to the old order across star systems. Whispers became weapons. On the world of Varn, a fleet was built in silence, their only target the queen, and on Earth human leaders debated sending support. Some saw Ryan as a traitor, others saw him as a hero, but none of them truly understood what that child meant back on Salura. Ryan trained every day. He found an old Zarethian blade, lightweight, shaped like a crescent, sharp enough to cut stone. He practiced in the snow, swing after swing, step after step, until his muscles burned. The queen watched from the edge of the temple, wrapped in old robes, a smile on her lips. "You look like someone preparing for a duel." He didn't stop. "I'm preparing to protect you both, whatever comes." She walked toward him, slow, graceful. Even in her condition, "You're not just a soldier anymore." He stopped swinging, turned toward her. "Then what am I?" She placed her hands on his chest. "You are the mate of a queen, the father of the future, the man who made me feel alive, and I will fight beside you." They stood like that, frozen in time, surrounded by snow and silence, until a sound broke the peace, a flash of light, a ripple in the air. They turned as Zarethian soldiers stood at the edge of the temple. A lone weapon, lowered helmet off, he dropped to one knee. "Your Majesty, forgive my entrance, but I had to find." Youth Queen narrowed her eyes. "Are you here to arrest me?" The soldier shook his head. "I'm here to warn you. The council sent a team, elite assassins. They know where you are." Ryan stepped forward. "How long do we have?" "Hours, maybe less." The queen looked at the soldier. "Why are you warning?" Yuj met her eyes, voice firm. "Because I saw what they tried to do to you, to him, to your unborn child, and I believe this union is not a curse. It's a chance." Ryan nodded once. "Then help us prepare." The soldier smiled. "Already done." From behind the walls, 4 more figures appeared, soldiers, but loyal to her. They had been watching, guarding, waiting for the right time to show themselves. Ryan felt the shift. They were not alone anymore. Queen reached for her blade, long and silver, a weapon passed down from her ancestors. "If they come, they will not leave." Ryan took his position beside her. "Then let them come." The wind howled louder. The snow picked up speed, and the air began to shimmer. Enemy ships, invisible to most sensors, began to descend from orbit inside the sanctuary. A queen, a human, an unborn future, and a small band of loyal warriors, prepared to defend what mattered most. Not a throne, not a crown, but a heartbeat. The child of 2 worlds, the child of love. And as the first shadow entered the temple, sword raised, eyes cold, Ryan met it head on. No hesitation, no fear, because in that moment, blood didn't matter. Titles didn't matter, only the choice they made together, to fight, to protect, to survive, no matter the cost. The attack lasted 13 minutes, but those 13 minutes changed everything. Ryan Cole stood with a blade soaked in light. Blood that shimmered in colors he had never seen covered his arms. His breathing was heavy, but his focus was unshaken. Beside him, Queen Saralia leaned against a broken pillar, one hand on her belly, the other still gripping her ancestral sword. They were alive. Of the 5 assassins who landed, none left the sanctuary. One died by Ryan's blade. 2 were struck down by the loyal guards. The 4th took her own life rather than surrender, and the last, a boy no older than 15, dropped his weapon and cried. He had been told the child was a monster, that the queen was corrupted, that Ryan was a virus spreading into royal blood, but what he saw instead was a woman in pain, a man protecting her, and a life neither one would give up. The boy asked one question before collapsing: "Is this what love looks like?" Ryan didn't answer. He just carried the boy inside, wrapped him in warmth, and sat beside him until sleep took him. The queen watched all of it, and something inside her shifted. She had seen kings command armies. She had seen generals sacrifice thousands. But this quiet act of mercy meant more than all of them combined. She walked to Ryan, sat beside him on the cold floor. He looked at her, eyes tired, heart still racing. "You all right?" She nodded. "Better than I expected." He looked toward the child sleeping in the next room. "What do we do now?" The queen didn't answer immediately. Instead, she closed her eyes, reached into the ancient energies that flowed through her, and sent a signal, not through machines, but through the old ways. A pulse, a message, a memory carried through blood and time across the galaxy. Those who still remembered the truth heard it: exiled Zerethian nobles hiding on ice worlds, deserters who left the war machine behind, hidden colonies where the old songs were still sung. They all heard the queen's Kala whisper wrapped in fire: "Come back, the time is now." Within 3 days, they began to arrive. First, a single ship covered in moss and dust, carrying a priestess thought long dead. Then a small freighter, loaded with weapons forged before the Empire was born. Then dozens more until the sanctuary of Salura was no longer silent, but alive with people. Some wore armor, some wore robes, some carried scars. All carried hope, and in the center of it all stood Ryan and Ceriliano. Longer hiding, Ryan walked among them, learning names, listening to stories, helping repair old tech. The queen watched him grow into a leader, not through speeches, but through presence. He wasn't trying to command, he was trying to connect, and they felt it. Even those who once hated humans now looked at him differently. One elder said it best: "Does not act like a conqueror, he acts like a father." In private, Seralia laughed when she heard that. "You've become their symbol." Ryan shrugged. "I just want the baby safe. And you, that's all I care about." She touched his face gently. "And yet you've started a rebellion without meaning to." He smiled. "Yes, I'm good at that." Meanwhile, the Council of Zerethia watched in horror. They expected her to run, to vanish into forgotten stars. Instead, she built an army, not of ships, but of belief, and that was more dangerous than any weapon. They sent spies. Each one failed to return. They spread lies, but too many had already heard her voice. Then, they made a final decision. They would destroy Salura, erase it completely. No survivors, no future. But they were too late by the time their fleet arrived. The queen and her people were already gone. Ryan had led the evacuation, moving hundreds across hidden wormholes, using ancient tunnels built before memory. When the Zerethian ships fired on Salura, they hit only stone. The queen watched from a hidden observatory, eyes glowing with silent fire. They destroyed their own temple, the place of first voices, to silence a truth. But the truth had already spread across systems. Rebellions began to rise on Drakari. The miners laid down their tools, saying they would no longer dig for an empire that silenced mothers on Tenros. The Royal Academy of Knowledge released forbidden texts, revealing the full prophecy of the hybrid child, and on Earth news finally reached the public, the story of Ryan Cole, of the queen who loved him, of the child that could unite galaxies. Some called him a traitor, others called him a hero, but no one could ignore him anymore. In one hidden moon, Ryan stood before a group of refugees holding a small device that projected a simple message. He looked into the lens, took a deep breath, and spoke. "I am Ryan Cole, born on Earth, once a soldier, now something else. I never meant to change the galaxy. I only wanted peace, and somehow I found it in her." They told me love was weakness, but I have never felt stronger. They say our child is a threat, but I say he is a bridge between fear and hope, between power and heart. We don't want war, we want to live, but if they force us to fight, then we will together. That message spread faster than any warship. It played on pirate frequencies, on outlaw stations, even on Zerethian news feeds. Before being cut off, but the damage was done, the Queen watched the recording in silence, then placed a hand over her belly. He speaks like a father, and they finally hear him that night. As Ryan returned from the meeting halls, he found her waiting in their chamber. The glow around her was stronger, the energy in the air heavy. He rushed to her. Is it time? She nodded slowly. Soon he knelt beside her, rested his forehead against hers. We'll be ready, she smiled. You already are. And outside, among the stars, the rebellion burned brighter, not with hate, but with love, with unity, with something the galaxy had forgotten: choice. And as worlds began to rise, as leaders began to fall, a single heartbeat echoed louder than any weapon. Heartbeat of the child who was never supposed to be, and the parents who refused to give up. Earth had always looked small from space, beautiful, blue, bright. But small now, it looked like a storm waiting to break. Ryan Cole stood aboard the stolen Zerethian scout ship, eyes locked on the planet of his birth. He hadn't seen it in over a year. And now he was returning, not as a soldier, not as a visitor, but as something the world would never expect: a father, a protector, and a symbol behind him. Queen Seralia stood tall, her presence still radiant, even though she was days from giving birth there. Child moved within her, strong, restless, as if the unborn already knew the world below was not safe. The ship passed through the outer orbit. Stealth shields activated. No one saw them, not yet, but down on Earth, panic was already spreading. News had reached every corner of the planet. The Queen of Zerethia, pregnant with a human's child, the child of prophecy, and that human was one of their own. Some called it a miracle, others called it a threat. The United Earth Alliance held emergency meetings. Military leaders demanded action, religious leaders demanded answers. The people, they were split. Some marched in peace, holding signs of hope. Others filled the streets in anger, chanting against the stars. Ryan's face appeared on every screen. His message, his voice, his love. But so did something else. A transmission had been forged showing Ryan destroying a peace envoy, accusing him of betrayal, saying the Queen had hypnotized him, that the child was a weapon. None of it was true, but truth no longer mattered. Fear had taken control, and someone had made the first move. Explosions hit 3 cities: New York, Tokyo. Perizerethian tech was found at each site. It wasn't Seralia's. She had never approved such violence. She had never ordered a single strike, but the attackers wanted one thing: war, and they almost got it. Inside, Earth's highest orbital command general stood ready to fire. Ships began to rise from the oceans. Missiles powered up. Ryan saw it all from orbit, and he knew if they didn't act now, nothing would survive. He turned to Seralia. Land tonight, she nodded, eyes calm, voice steady. Then we end this. Together, they descended over the ruins of New York, flames still licking the sky, smoke rising like claws. Ryan walked through the ash, weapon in one hand, child's blanket in the other. Seralia followed, her guards close, but not afraid. The people ran at first, terrified. But then they stopped. They saw her glowing through the smoke, saw Ryan walking beside her, not in chains, not under control, but free, and holding a symbol of life in his arms. The blanket, a small cloth woven from Zerethian crystal silk, soft, warm, marked with 2 emblems, the crest of Zerethia and the flag of Earth. Crowds began to form. No one spoke, no one moved until a child, no older than 5, walked through the smoke, holding a teddy bear. She looked up at the Queen. Are you the one they say will destroy us? Seralia knelt slowly, her robes glowing, her voice soft. No, I am the one who carries a child that might save us all. The little girl reached out, touched Seralia's hand, then protect him. Please. That moment changed everything. The crowd dropped their weapons, their fear, their anger, and stood in silence. Then came the soldiers, Earth's elite unit, guns ready, orders unclear. Ryan stepped forward, spoke calmly. If you fire, you'll start a war. None of us can win. The commander stepped closer. We have orders. We saw the transmission. Ryan didn't flinch. It was fake, and you know it. The commander paused, looked at the Queen, then at the people. behind him and lowered his weapon. His men followed one by one. Earth began to breathe again, but it didn't last. A sound split the sky. Ships, hundreds of them. Zerethian fleet controlled by the Council, following the forged command codes sent from Earth's own war network. They believed the Queen was lost, that her child had fallen into enemy hands. They came to wipe the surface clean. Ryan's earpiece buzzed. A message from the outer defense ring. Incoming energy wave. Prepare for impact. He turned to Saralia. They're going to fire on us. She looked at the sky, at the ship she once commanded, and whispered, "Not if I speak first." She reached into her robe, pulled out a relic older than the Council itself. A crystal key bound to the royal bloodline. She lifted it into the air. A pulse rippled outward. A command known only to queens. A command that could stop fleets mid-flight, but her strength was fading. The child was coming, her body trembling. Ryan caught her before she fell. He held her close, eyes wide. "You can't do both. You can't give birth and stop a war at the same time." She looked up at him, smiled faintly. "Then speak for me." Ryan stood, held the relic above his head. His voice carried across the open transmission lines. "This is Captain Ryan Cole, former soldier of Earth, current protector of a child that belongs to both of us. You fire on this planet. You destroy your future. Look at who you serve. Look at what you've become. We are not your enemies. We are your next beginning. And if you doubt me, then listen to the one voice that matters." He turned, pointed the mic toward Saralia, who was now lying in the ash, breathing hard, face shining with pain. And then came the sound, the child's first heartbeat, loud, pure, unfiltered, transmitted across every channel. The entire fleet heard it, and for a moment, no one moved. Then, one by one, ships powered down, engines cooled, weapons lowered. The fleet stopped. Earth lived, and Ryan dropped to his knees beside Saralia. She cried out once, twice, then silence and a sound not from the sky, but from her arms. A cry, soft, beautiful, new, their child born in smoke and ash, cradled in fire and love. Ryan held him close, eyes full of tears. "You did it. You really did it." Saralia smiled, her voice barely a whisper. "We did it together." Above them, the skies cleared, the sun rose, and the world finally saw what love could survive. The stars were quiet now. No warships in the sky, no cries for battle, no threats of destruction, only silence, and the sound of a newborn child's heartbeat, still echoing through the frequencies of 1,000 systems. That sound had stopped the fleet. Melted walls built over centuries brought two worlds back from the edge. The child had not spoken a single word, but the galaxy was already listening in. A small chamber inside Earth's recovery base. Queen Saralia lay resting, her skin dimmed to a soft golden glow, her energy drained, but her heart full. Ryan Cole stood by the window, holding their son in his arms. The baby's eyes were strange, a swirl of human blue and Zerethian gold, his fingers tiny, yet glowing faintly with ancient power. He had no name yet, but everyone already knew this child would not live a normal life. He would not grow up in peace. He was born to carry the weight of change. A child of two bloods, two worlds, two hearts. First hybrid heir of a galactic throne, and the only living proof that love could reshape empires. Ryan rocked him slowly, said nothing, just listened to the hum in the air. Then, a voice soft, barely a whisper, "Let me hold him." He turned. Saralia had pushed herself up, face pale, but smiling. Ryan carried the baby over, gently placed him in her arms. She looked down, touched his cheek, and tears filled her eyes. So small, so perfect. Ryan knelt beside her. "He's strong already." She nodded. "He will need to be outside." Earth cities began to rebuild. Ships landed, not with bombs but with aid. Medical teams from Zarethia worked beside human doctors. Engineers fixed broken roads using light thread technology. Soldiers who once pointed guns now handed out food. Message had spread. The war was over, but the story was just beginning. In the Galactic Council, the high seats trembled. One by one, worlds that once stayed silent now spoke up. "The child is alive, and we will stand with him." The Zerethian Council, crushed by public outcry, had no choice but to step down. Queen Saralia, still weak, was offered her throne again. She declined. "Let the people choose." Let the new world build itself. I have other duties now. Her words shocked many, but Ryan understood she wasn't turning away from power. She was turning toward something greater. Family. In the months that followed, Ryan and Saralia disappeared from the public eye. They traveled the stars quietly, staying in hidden places, living among farmers, refugees, healers. Everywhere they went, they saw pain but also hope. People smiled at the sight of their child, touched his feet, sang ancient blessings. Some believed he was the child of prophecy. Others believed he was simply a child, loved, protected, wanted, and maybe that was enough. But peace, even the strongest kind, was fragile. It began with whispers. A hidden faction, made of old blood fanatics who called themselves the Purity Flame. They believed hybrids were unnatural, that Ryan had corrupted the queen, that the child must be erased to restore balance. Their symbols appeared in city walls. Their voices echoed in dark corners of the net. And then one night, they struck an attack on the healing colony of Ceros Prime. Dozens dead, Zerethian and human alike. They left one message behind: we will not be ruled by half-bloods. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for a response. Ryan wanted to fight, to lead soldiers again, to end it the old way. But Saralia held his hand. Let our son be the answer, not our rage. So they brought him to the Grand Forum, still barely a year old, but already walking, already sensing emotion. The galaxy watched as this small child stepped onto the speaking platform. He said no words, only walked toward the fire pit at the center and raised his hands. The flame rose, turned violet, then gold, then went still. Every screen across every system showed the same thing. The fire had obeyed him, and from that day the Purity Flame lost their name, because fire had chosen the hybrid. The Grand Forum voted a rare universal decree passed by every planet. The child, now named Kale Saren Cole, was recognized as the first light, a new symbol of unity. Not a king, not a god, but something more powerful. Hope made flesh. Years passed. Kale grew strong, taller than his father, sharper than his mother, wiser than either of them expected. He could calm angry crowds. By holding their hands, he could grow plants in dead soil. By walking barefoot, he could lift fallen beams without touching them. But he never forgot where he came from. He laughed like a human, he danced like a Zerethian, and he loved his parents more than anything. Ryan aged slower than most, thanks to Saralia's healing touch, but he still carried his old scars. He taught Kale how to throw a punch, how to listen, how to protect what mattered. Saralia taught him how to feel, how to forgive, how to lead without commanding. And one night, as the stars blinked softly above a quiet lake, Kale asked a question. Why? Ryan looked at him, then at the water. Because we believed in something bigger than war. Because your mother chose love, and because I followed her into the fire. Saralia smiled. And because you chose to be born. Kale nodded, held their hands. Then I will choose to protect every voice, no matter the blood it carries. And from that day forward, he did. Galaxies changed, borders melted, old systems were reborn, built not on power, but on compassion. And when people asked how it all began, the story was always the same: a human, a queen, a child born from love. And the moment she whispered, I felt it too.